Welcome back. The Republicans vying with Donald Trump to be the GOP's nominee this year had a unique opportunity last night. With Trump boycotting the last debate before the Iowa caucuses, candidates were able to attack him without fear of an immediate comeback. Who, if anyone, made the most of this moment? And how is Donald Trump's decision to stay away playing? Here's correspondent Jonathan Carl.
Before we get to the issues, let's address the elephant not in the room tonight.
From the start of last night's debate, the Republican candidates took on that elephant not in the room.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
Trump's competitors mentioned his name 7 times in the debate's first 10 minutes, with Ted Cruz mocking the Donald's absence.
I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way.
But a debate without Trump turned mostly tame, a showdown without the spectacle. The candidates instead dove into policy, the first real fireworks coming over immigration reform.
Because you used to support a path to citizenship.
So did you.
Well, but you changed in the book.
So did you, Marco.
The truth is, Ted, throughout this campaign, you've been willing to say or do anything in order to get votes. Now you want to trump Trump on immigration.
The facts are simple. When I ran in Texas, I told the people of Texas, if you elect me, I will lead the fight against amnesty.
I feel like I need a Washington to English dictionary converter, right? Ted could change his mind. Marco could change his mind. Stop the Washington Bull and let's get things done.
Hoping to rise in Iowa before Monday's first-in-the-nation caucus, Marco Rubio talked tough on foreign policy and also took on the Democrats.
I think Bernie Sanders is a good candidate for president of Sweden.
And Cruz, at center stage for the first time, failed to take over the spotlight left open by Trump's absence, his tangle with the moderators falling flat.
Chris, I would note that the last 4 questions have been, Rand, please attack Ted. Marco, please attack Ted. Chris, please attack Ted. Jeb, please attack Ted. Let me just say this.
It is a debate, sir.
Well, no, gosh, if you guys ask one more mean question, I may have to leave the stage.
Well, don't worry, I'm not leaving the stage no matter what you ask me.
Jonathan Carl reporting there, and joining us now here, Steve Shepard. He's campaigns and elections editor for our friends at Politico. Welcome back. Thanks for your time.
Always a pleasure.
What a wild night to have the last debate before Iowa. You know, this campaign has gone on so long. Now we're on the eve, we're on the cusp of voting. This was the last debate before the Iowa caucuses. So it would have been big in a normal time, and this wasn't a normal time because the front runner in terms of nationally, and I guess he's #1 right now in New Hampshire, Donald Trump, bolted because of Megyn Kelly. We'll get into that in a second. He's at a rival event, one of those split screen moments, Steve, that come along in politics or in life pretty rarely.
Yeah, not only is he ahead nationally and ahead in New Hampshire, but in the last week or so, he's moved ahead in Iowa as well. And, you know, with the caucus goers getting ready to go out on Monday night and cast the first ballots in this process, you know, when you're in the lead, and I think Ted Cruz saw this a little bit last night, when you're in the lead, people come after you. And Donald Trump, you know, he talks about Megyn Kelly, talks about the Fox News press releases that have been slamming him, and that's why he doesn't want to do it. Ultimately, you know, I liken this to a team that's like a basketball team that's winning late in the game and plays the 4 corners offense, tries to keep the ball away from the opponent, tries to sit on their lead, run out the clock, and get there without being attacked. And you saw last night Ted Cruz was he's the #2 candidate in Iowa. But
he was the #1 target on the stage because of who wasn't there.
Because Donald Trump wasn't there. So in a lot of ways, you know, unless this backfires on Trump, unless caucus goers say, you know, he should have been there, that was a disservice to us, this might have been a smart move for him.
So there's so much for us to discuss. I almost don't know where to begin. I'm going to pick one line of questioning just kind of at random. Donald Trump has this big personality. He's prone to attack. If he thinks, you know, he doesn't like you, you're a loser, and this one's a jerk, and on and on. And yet, Megyn Kelly asks a very factual question, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But Megyn Kelly asks a question in a debate that he doesn't like. So here you have, talk about the contrast with this guy who's kind of a smash-mouth politician, but when he's on the receiving end, he doesn't seem able to, you know, his decision is not to stay and engage, it's to walk.
Well, Donald Trump is thin-skinned. If there's one thing we've learned, not just during this campaign, but during his past flirtations for president, during his career as a reality television star, during his career as a real estate magnate and big personality in New York City in the 80s and 90s, he's very thin-skinned. Every insult or every perceived slight, he takes notice of, and he fights back. You know, he took his ball and went home last night, in part, I think, because of a lot of these perceived slights.
Now, the Fox press release might have been one that you would have fun writing, and then you would sort of post it on the bulletin board and say, this is what we came up with but didn't send. But then you send something more traditional, more corporate, more toward the ultimate goal. I mean, at the time Fox put out that release, there was still the chance that he might come back, and you'd sort of salvage the debate because you'd have everyone there, and you'd avoid the spectacle that the thing became. But to go back to the Megyn Kelly question, I saw that question live. I've seen it on tape since. I've seen the transcripts, and my take is she quoted him. She quoted his words over time back to him in an accurate, factual way, and then in a pretty savvy way, she pivoted and talked about the general and the political impact his words might have in a race against a person who could be the first woman ever elected president of the United States. I thought it was pretty masterful. And I don't see where the anger one could reasonably have at that question would reasonably lead you to bolt off the stage when you're talking about a Republican debate on Fox.
Right. You know, look, and we're already seeing the power and the leverage that Donald Trump has. You know, Fox talked to him, tried to get him to do the debate. Ultimately, the TV ratings that came out this morning are down. They are lower than, they're in between the two debates that were held on Fox Business Network, which far fewer Americans actually get on their cable system or know about. You know, the first Fox News Channel debate, this is going to have maybe, if they're lucky, half the audience of that. People didn't tune in because, or a number of people didn't tune in because Donald Trump wasn't there, and he does have that leverage over them. You know, I question how genuine his, you know, his indignation is here, and how much he was motivated instead by the fact he's winning. He's winning, and he felt like he has more to lose, perhaps, by not being there. By being there than by not being there, than by skipping it. And I think that the statements that Fox News put out, which were very antagonistic, and you know, nothing that, you know, you and I work in the media business. If our communication shop sent something like that, I'd probably be pretty horrified that they were sort of taking sides like that. That said, they defended Megyn Kelly, and he walked, and you know, I don't know if it's going to hurt him or not.
Who took maximum advantage? Who took most advantage of the altered dynamic that we had on stage in Des Moines?
You know, it's funny. The fire was trained on Cruz last night, and I think you saw that a bit. I think Marco Rubio did pretty well. He is trying to make this sort of last-ditch effort. If he can finish a strong third place or even challenge Cruz for second place in Iowa, assuming Trump does win, you know, that's going to bode really well for him in New Hampshire. I think, you know, Cruz and Trump are pretty well ensconced in the top two spots in Iowa. I think we're looking at New Hampshire. So Marco Rubio. I think Jeb Bush actually did really well last night. And, you know, one of the things that we talked to some people overnight who said, Donald Trump not being there seemed to put Jeb Bush at ease. Nobody has faced as much as Donald Trump has talked about all the candidates on that stage. There is no candidate he has demeaned more than Jeb Bush. And Jeb Bush looked almost like a new man last night without the schoolyard bully there on the stage with him. Chris Christie also did pretty well. And look, those three candidates are going to be competing. Donald Trump has a 20-point lead in New Hampshire. Finishing second there, a strong second, is vital for Jeb Bush, for Marco Rubio, for Chris Christie, for John Kasich. Odds are only one of them really survives New Hampshire with a chance, and it's the candidate that can do the most, to a lesser extent in Iowa, but mostly in New Hampshire on February 9th, who's going to be the last man standing with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz as they go to South Carolina.
Politico Playbook, which comes out each morning from Mike Allen, is always good reading, and particularly on a day like today, it's really rich reading. And this morning, what I found interesting was how Mike captured the sense from some that if Trump overtakes Cruz in Iowa, then goes on to prevail in New Hampshire, that the whole thing could be over very early, contrasted with the Haley Barbour's view that people are getting ahead of themselves, that we're talking about 30 delegates out of 2,400 or some number, and that it's way, way too early to be saying, oh, somebody hit somebody in the jaw, bang, it's over. That's an interesting aspect of the dynamic of this moment.
Absolutely. Look, we talk about how crucial these contests in February are. We spend all this time in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, and Nevada. But when you get down to it, you're talking about a really small number of overall delegates in the race to clinch a majority of delegates at the Republican convention in July. February, the 4 states that vote in February make up such a small portion of that. And in March, by March 15th, we've had more than half the delegates awarded in this process. So March 1st and March 15th, when it comes to the delegate math, are more important, but momentum is important too. And if Trump wins Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, that train may have left the station.
Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't that be something? I mean, you wonder what will happen if folks who are in the middle tier, lower tier, don't do well in those early contests, but say, I'm going to stay on. They could lose money, they could lose staff, they could lose momentum, but if they stay and fight, this is such an unpredictable year. Who can say for sure how it all plays out?
Right, and that's one of the reasons you've seen very few candidates drop out so far. We still have 12 candidates who debated last night in the 2 debates going into Iowa. Now, I think we'll cut a number of them after Iowa, but everyone thinks they might have a chance.
Isn't it amazing? Steve Shepard, campaigns and elections editor for Politico, online at Politico.com. Great stuff as always. Thank you so much. Back with the program note after this.